Disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, you guys, this is a Reddit post. I am a former member of Scientology Sea Org. I don't know what I just did. Let's see. Okay. Edit. All right. I think I am Scientologied out for the time being. Thanks for all of the great questions and discussions. It was a good experience. I apologize if I missed any questions and if I let slip some Scientology speak. Hard habit to break. I added a little bit to my description below to hopefully clarify a few things for anyone who happens upon this, as I missed explaining a few things in the original. Sorry about that. Now pay attention to this part. I started working for the church's Sea Org just before my 16th birthday. That means she was 15. It's illegal. It's illegal. In a nutshell, the Sea Org is Scientology's management organization and is staffed by people who dedicate their lives to work beyond full-time for the church. I spent 10 years working for the church in the Sea Org. It means she was 26. I'm calling this person a woman. I don't know. I remained a Scientologist for several years after I stopped working at the church, but began to see rising reports of abuses and also saw an increasing emphasis on money. Sound like narcissism? So I distanced myself from the church and began to take a hard look at the religion from a broader view. Where were her parents or his parents? I mean, since when do 15-year-old children just sign up for a fake religion? You don't have parents? I found much of what I'd thought to be true cast into doubt. After well over a year of investigation and self-reflection, I came to the conclusion that Scientology as an organization is very corrupt, kind of like the LAPD, and that the religious practices do not provide the amazing results that are touted. Because the church does personally attack people who say negative things publicly about it. I know this from personal observation, both from when I was in the church and since I've left. I desire to remain anonymous, so will try to keep personally identifying information out of my answers. And that had 350 likes. The country Redditaria. Thanks for the AMA. How have your friends and family treated you since leaving? Specifically those in the church. Do you think Scientology can be a constructive religion if practiced in moderation? Gotta ask, have you seen the South Park episode about Scientology? If so, how accurate was it, and what do you think? I haven't left publicly, but a few people know that I no longer consider myself a Scientologist. If I left publicly, they would certainly never speak to me again, because I would essentially be considered a traitor. I think that some of the basic tenets of Scientology are good and have helped people. I don't believe that. Why else would so many people get involved? Mind control. Contrary to what people might think, most of the Scientologists I knew were very normal people who just wanted to improve their lives and help others. They are good people. Why do we keep hearing this over and over? Why do we? It's like a constant theme. I just wonder. I mean, all these adults are saying that children are adults in small bodies. And we know about all this abuse of children. So I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be harsh, but you just got to call it like you see it, you know? Do I think it can be constructed if practiced in moderation? Maybe. The organization is really corrupt, and I would fear that an independent movement would fall into similar traps. Agreed? Abuse, corruption. I've seen some of the same mentalities crop up in the current independent movement. How many of these ex-Scientologists have we seen that are independent Scientologists? If you can't let the doctrine and the policies go, then you're still Scientologist. And you're not trying to take down anything, especially the abuse. Although to a much lesser degree. One of the big problems, I think, is the way the concept of responsibility is used in Scientology. I'm all for personal responsibility, but they use this concept against people. It becomes, you are responsible for everything that happens to you. Yeah, like child sex assault, including bad things and accidents. It turns into a trap that's hard to break free from. Edit. Oh, the South Park episode was disappointing. I was hoping they would delve more into the subject rather than just focus on Xenu and the possibility of Tom Cruise being gay. I can understand that. Bliss replies, but was the part where Stan went to the center and got his Satan levels checked accurate? Like if I was to go join a church, would it be similar? Deleted account. Would you say the emphasis on personal responsibility in Scientology is similar to the Republican conservative emphasis on personal responsibility? If not, how are they different? Notice nobody's asking about the children. He responds, whomever this is. Happy outside. Yes, I would consider them to be similar. Both seem to emphasize responsibility in ways that mean people who are having a rough time are just lazy, or in the case of Scientologists, unethical. You know, like children. The country Red Taria. Why else would so many people get involved? Propaganda and possibly because their friends are into it. Same reason millions of Germans became Nazis. Thanks for the detailed answer, and I'm sorry that you can't leave altogether. That seems horrible to have people close to you be so close-minded. They're counting on it. Amish, Mormons, Muslims, and Christians all have to deal with that to some extent. It's because it's all mind control. Just thinking about this is sadly one of the reasons I hold a deep down animosity toward religion. It just divides people. Either hold my hand or I'll punch you with it. Thanks for the answers and the AMA. I'm actually reading Lawrence Wright's recent book on Scientology, Going Clear, Scientology, Hollywood, and the Prison of Belief right now. Fascinating in watching a train wreck kind of way. One, what are your thoughts on David Miscavige? You guys know, I'm so sick. I'm so sick of people focusing on David Miscavige. As if all the child abuse could happen from one person, right? Two, Do you think that Scientology is a religion, or is it a business? Should it be tax-exempt organization? I do wonder sometimes if some of these people are actually Scientologists pretending to be out of Scientology. I wonder that a lot. Like a double agent? I really do wonder. And you know they're the king and queens of Reddit, right? Have you ever read any works critical of Scientology since you've left? Books, news reports, etc.? Thoughts? 4. I understand that people who leave Scientology are often hit with bills of $150,000 plus for years of auditing and other materials. Do you think this would happen to you if you publicly left? Has this happened to anyone you know? That's the freeloader debt. By law, they can't make you pay it. 5. Which would contain more thetans? 100 duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck? I mean, it's kind of funny, but it just makes me wonder, you guys. Like, who are these people asking these questions? Because the reason I'm asking this is they're always focused on the same things, if you know what I mean. You know, all these various people, why would they always constantly be talking about the same things unless they were there to distract? You know what I mean? Edit. Added question, link, and correct joke. Happy Outside replies. This is about David Miscavige. I just saw him on the Colbert Report, which is one of the reasons I was inspired to finally do this AMA. Some people had asked me to do it months ago. 1. I believe he's a megalomaniac and narcissist. I met him once, and he's nice enough if you're just being introduced. He has a great reputation inside the church because there is a lot of PR done on him. It's a narcissist controlling the narrative. That's what they do. It's built right into Scientology. I thought he lived very simply and wasn't leeching off the church. Since leaving, though, I found out that he has an array of personal assistants, chefs, expensive cars, suits, etc. I've read enough creditable accounts from people I either peripherally knew of or had been friends with, now to know that he was violent and beat people. You know, like Wally Hanks. He seems to control the church with an iron fist. 2. I always considered it more of a philosophy than a religion. As for being a business, almost no one working for the church is making money off of it. It's a parasite. It's only a very few, and that is not known within the church. Most work themselves to the bone for almost no how do I say that? Remuneration? They think they are helping mankind. That's the bait. 3. Lots. Actually, I always ignored the don't read negative things, and so read a lot of negative stuff while I was still in. But a lot of what I read didn't match my experiences, and I just didn't believe the more outlandish things. When a bunch of former members came out a few years ago with allegations of abuse, I really started reading. They were more creditable to me at the time because many still believed in Scientology itself, but were exposing corruptions within the organization. How many times have we heard that, you guys? I'm here to expose abuse within Scientology. Something to think about. And it brought about realizations in myself that a lot of the stuff I saw and experienced that was negative weren't isolated incidents. 4. I got a bill for about $65,000 when I stopped working for the church. It was ridiculous, but you became conditioned to believe that you owe the church. They've had to change their policy on that a bit in the last few years because of the hordes of people leaving and exposing abuses. I've heard of people making deals to no longer have the debt in exchange for their silence. Non-disclosure agreements, anyone? Who's that sound like? Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. 5, apparently it depends on what OT level they are. Because you know why? The higher OTs know more. Oh my God. Is really me. What did you do about your bill? Did you pay it? Happy Outside replies, I paid a few $100s of it before I realized it was total BS. They decreased it when dozens of ex-Sea Org members were speaking out about abuses in order to help keep people in the flock. I consider it invalid now. They can't collect on it or anything. Deleted responds. Oh, I don't know where that is, so that's gone. Happy Outside. Well, they sort of do, although it's just staff members calling you to try to collect the money through more guilt tripping. Guilt tripping, big narcissism thing. But none of these types of bills are legally binding or anything. They only prevent you from doing any further services at the church until you pay them. Too bad for me, eh? What is that other thing they want people to do, the A through E steps? You know what you can do with that. CP 5184. What sort of things were you doing that you thought your work was helping the world? Why did you think it was helping? Were members like you constantly putting more money into the church? Happy Outside. Well, I don't really want to go into what positions I held because I don't want to give identifying information. Nothing too exciting or interesting, really. I was a cog in the machine, so to speak. There is a big and effective internal propaganda machine within the church that makes it seem that all of these great and wonderful things are happening all over the world because of Scientology. Wonderful and wildly successful literacy programs, drug and criminal rehabilitation, let alone the thousands upon thousands who are living tremendously better lives due to Scientology auditing and courses, to include children, because you know. If you are in the Sea Org, you are effectively cut off from the outside world, and these propaganda events are your only source of news on Scientology. You wouldn't believe the church is lying to you or making this stuff up, but they are. I never donated much to the church because I worked there and had no money. Many Scientologists donate huge amounts, up to hundreds of thousands of dollars, to the church and are often under immense pressure. The fundraising tactics can be extreme. That's how they get all their money. It's a parasite. Including showing up unannounced at people's homes and other boundary violations. They don't have boundaries in Scientology. And refusing to leave until donations are made. I just wonder. I know they couldn't do that at my house. That's all I'm going to say. People are strongly pressured to do things like take out second mortgages and overextend their credit. Spike NLB, in your statement, you reference seeing rising reports of abuses. This Spike dude's kind of sus to me. What abuses did you personally and or are certain occurred based on association with other members within the Sea Org? What was the most severe in your opinion? I don't know. I find that kind of a weird question, you guys. Sounds like a Scientologist. Like they're trying to find out, what does this person know? I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm usually not. Happy Outside. Good question. A lot of people like me who have left look back now and wonder how we stayed so long and ignored things we saw that were wrong. A good analogy is a toad in a pot of water that slowly starts boiling. You don't notice the heat rising if it's done so incrementally. Plus, as I referenced in another post, you are considered to be responsible for anything bad happening to you. So it becomes, well, such and such a person had this happen to them, but it's their fault. You know, like children getting essayed. So I don't feel sorry for them. They must be doing something out ethics. Like the children getting essayed. In Scientology terms, it's called pulling something in. I saw children, as young as 12, LAPD, working 7 days a week. Let's say that again. I saw children as young as 12 working 7 days a week. LAPD, Department of Justice, FBI, Federal Bureau of so-called Investigation, Child Protective Services, Department of Education. No school for kids. I was a few weeks shy of my 16th birthday. That means you were 15 when I went in. Why not say you were 16 or 15, I mean? When I went in and never went to another day of school again. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful, Department of Education? Person never went to school again. I was happy with the arrangement because I wanted to be treated like an adult. Children are adults in small bodies. So I bought into the whole idea they have that children are adults in small bodies. But now I see how horrible that was. Some of these kids were virtually illiterate. That's how they want them. Department of Education. It was so sad, and I hoped it would be corrected, but it wasn't. Boy, that's really sad. Red 5 point. Thanks for this answer and confirm. In the last few years here in Australia, a reporter discovered exactly this, that school-age children are being made to work on the pretense that they are being homeschooled. You see? You see what they're doing. The segment was shown by a show called Today Tonight, mostly known for sensationalism, so many people falsely dismissed it as bogus. I'm going to click on this. I don't know what's going to happen. Scientology, you blocking these videos and getting people's pages or channels taken down, do you really think that's going to stop people from understanding the truth? I mean, you guys are in the 50s. We are in 2025. It's unreal. Happy Outside. I did see that after it aired, it's largely true, although it's not really a secret compound. Yes, it is. I think that probably was maybe the segment with Shane, Shane, the young blonde Australian boy who was in Scientology, and they locked him up in a little room underneath a stairwell where there were rats and everything. But yes, there are children there, and at best they are being indifferently homeschooled. Probably irregularly, if at all. Some of my old friends used to go to school in the Sea Org, but didn't exist by the time I got there. And even then, they said they rarely went, and it was often canceled for work emergencies. These children, it's just the saddest thing. Happy Outside, work was mostly office-type work, but also some manual labor such as construction and the like. What were office-type assignments? What were you working on? See, to me, this is also a very suspect question. Maybe I'm being too overly analyzing these, but it's good to get someone off topic, you know what I mean? But maybe I'm reading too deep into it. Ijmanaji, former SO member here. I left Flag about 1.5 years ago and was in the Sea Org and Scientology for 2.5 years. Can no longer study Scientology, and I can relate to a lot of your responses here. I think a big part of me is staying and ignoring some things that I thought were borderline illegal. Well, no, they were illegal. Was because of the people I worked with. There were a lot of good people I met there we go again. I mean, maybe they are. I don't know. I met who seemed to care a lot about mankind and genuinely thought they were doing all they could to help. Those are the empaths, you guys. I mean, who works 16 hours days sometimes, 48 hours straight, and is okay with getting paid $50 a week? I wanted to help them, so I stayed and dealt with some bullshit. I joined the Sea Org my second day in Scientology, so I dealt with an interesting culture shock. For the first 6 months, I have to say the RPF was one of those things I can't believe people, even Sea Org members, put up with. Because they got a lot of blackmail. It doesn't make any sense to me that it's okay to put the most out ethics members in a group, not allowed contact with anyone. Some are in for years. I am in complete disbelief about it. I told myself if for some reason I would ever get sent to the RPF, I would run away. I was an HCO, and the RPF was a ridiculous concept to me. When you mention about kids and going to school, when I was in the Sea Org not too long ago, it was taken very seriously that kids who weren't done with school had to go. I still feel bad for them, though. They are definitely not getting the childhood they deserve. How about that, you guys? Happy Outside responds, I really understand what you mean about the people being a big part of ignoring the bad stuff. You know, like Scientology parents. This was a big part of it for me as well. The people were almost all some of the best I've ever met and worked with. So it really bothers me when people say Scientologists are bad people. It's not true. Misled as hell, but far from bad. I was pretty new to Scientology when I joined as well. I'd been in about 2 months and had done 3 basic courses and the Purif. Culture shock for sure. I almost left during the EPF. It's too bad that they didn't. It really is too bad. Seems that some changes have been made in the last few years, and I'm glad kids are at least getting some schooling. Yeah, because by law, maybe. But they shouldn't be in the Sea Org at all. Hello? One of my child's friends, a young teen, was actually flown down to LA by recruiters once without her mother's knowledge. This was just a few years ago. There we go, sidestepping the parental duties. I mean, I realize that they do things like this, but, I mean, how much are you going to say, oh, the parents didn't know, the parents weren't there, Scientology did this to the kids, and the parents were not there. I mean, I don't know. I am curious about how things are in the Sea Org nowadays. If you would indulge me, it's pretty weird that they still only get $50 a week. It was moved up from $30 a week in 1991, so no change in more than 20 years. That right there is pretty telling. If you feel up to answering any of these questions, that would be cool, and if not, that's cool too. Were you allowed to have a cell phone and any internet access? Did you hear anything about the former senior execs, prestigious executives, having left and speaking out about abuses? And if so, what did you think about that? I'm particularly curious what people thought about Debbie Cook having left. She may have been before your time, but she embodied flag for a long time. Yeah, Debbie Cook. Debbie Cook was busy abusing children. Did you guys know? Debbie Cook was busy abusing children, making a big deal out of children that had been sexually abused and putting the blame on them. How many children went out 2D this week? Coercion from adults. Abuse, sexual abuse. I have heard they really clamp down on this one, offloading nicely anyone who gets pregnant. What did I just say, you guys? How is Flag doing statistics-wise? When you left, all of the church news claims it is bursting at the seams. Ijama replies, I am happy to answer your questions. It is weird that people still only get $50 a week, and it sucked. I'm not sure why it hasn't changed. Yeah, it's still the same. I believe it's 47. Shocking, right? What is a 47? Gematria effect? Zachary K. Hubbard? But what do I know? We were not allowed to have a cell phone or internet access. I secretly kept my cell phone for the entire 2.5 years I was in, and it had internet access. Good. HCO knew I had it, though, because everyone I knew at home were non-Scientologists and would have been ARC broken if they discovered the church wouldn't allow me to have a cell phone. The HAS wanted me to leave it with an ethics officer. Was that ethics officer a child? Was the ethics officer a child? Inquiring MF minds want to know. The HAS wanted me to leave it with an ethics officer, but I somehow slipped it by everyone. The only senior exec, prestigious executives, I heard about was Debbie Cook, former captain FSO, field service officer. I heard that she just drove off one day, and that's it. See how easy it is to leave? It's so easy to leave, you guys. Except not for the kids. I thought it was bizarre hearing that the captain blew, but of course it was explained to me that all blows are due to overts and withholds. I am curious to know what really happened. I was in HCO though, so sometimes I did hear about blows. Other than that, no one was allowed to talk about it, or any blows outside the HCO. Also, because I was in HCO, I would hear the news if a couple got pregnant. Can you guys believe this? They love the children, they abuse the children, they're parasiting off the children, they're making money off the children because children are adults in small bodies, putting the children in out ethics handlings, calling them banky and turbulated, putting them in the RPF. But yet, they don't want couples in the Sea Org to get pregnant. I would hear the news if a couple got pregnant. In each case, I heard about the couple would be removed from post, gotten through a sec check, and once done, offloaded. Offloaded means they just get them out of the Sea Org. They stay in Scientology, though. I actually always wondered about whether or not abortion was a thing there, only because after studying Dianetics, wouldn't that be against their beliefs? Oh, didn't you guys know? Didn't you guys know L. Ron Hubbard was really into the abortions? Moloch, anyone? Satanic blood sacrifice, anyone? Ring-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding. Is it ringing a bell now? The Crowley Hubbard connection? Ring-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding-a? Blood sacrifice? Flag stats, they were doing pretty well. The last year I was there in 2011, they were trying to open the new Mecca building by the end of the year. Even COB, that's Miscavige, announced it publicly during maiden voyage. The interior of the building was completed, but they still needed 500 more staff members. It was completely chaotic due to such an unrealistic target. They needed to train hundreds of tech personnel and admin personnel, and we just didn't have the numbers to do it. I was in Department 1, so this affected me a lot. So many people were getting pulled off their posts and into training pools to try and make it work. It was just complete and utter chaos. The pressure was so intense, not to mention the whole superpower RD, with nothing released on it yet. And no auditors, children auditors too. No auditors to deliver it. I left in October that year, so I was quite curious as to how they were going to pull it off. It's now 2013 and they still haven't opened it. I can't imagine what's going on there now. Happy Outside responds, thanks so much for the more recent insight. Debbie Cook is a sad story. No, she's not. No, she's not. She should be in jail. I don't know how people can feel sorry for some of these people. She looks like she's been through hell and back. No, you know who was through hell and back? The children that she abused. That's who went through hell and back. The children that she abused. Did you ever read the email she sent out to Scientologists? It was really interesting. Your comments about the Mecca building and superpower cracked me up. Back in the 90s, I was up at FLO, Field Liaison Office, level, then called FCB, Flight Command Bureau, and there was a huge push around 1993, LLRC, to have 500 people recruited and gotten into training for flag for superpower and such. We were told back then that superpower was going to be released soon. I believe there was another push in the late 90s and then early 2000s. Nothing ever came out of these aside from a few recruits and a hell of a lot musical chairs, personnel ripoffs, and stress. As far as Abordian, when I was in, I only ever heard vague rumors about a few people I know having them and never understood how that happened because of what Hubbard says in Dianetics and Science of Survival about the subject. There were a few people I knew who thought it was the greatest good. Isn't that great, you guys? Kill the babies. It wasn't until much later that I found out that my husband and I got off comparably easy. So I was right, she's a woman. I don't know how I knew that. Many women in key positions were heavily pressured into having them. Things blew up a few years back when those women started speaking out about it, and I believe that's about the time the operating basis on it changed. But that's the problem. Nobody speaks up unless something happens to them. You know what I mean? I feel compassion, you guys. Don't get me wrong. I do. I feel tremendous compassion. But it just bothers me that it's like when people speak up, it's only about what happened to them. That doesn't sit right with me. Ijama, I don't know how to say this name, so that's how I'm going to say it. It's nice to have a conversation with someone who understands and cares about what I went through. Someone to relate to. I appreciate it. I don't know anything about the email Debbie Cook sent. I would like to read it. That's funny that there was a huge push to release the superpower RD 20 years ago, and again 10 years ago. I'm not surprised, though. They must be somewhat closer now, though, considering our tour through the Mecca building several times and have seen in person the superpower RD machines. They are pretty cool looking. I have to admit, I was wondering, though, what non-Scientologists would think. Crazy? Sorry, guys. Well, they got to have something to keep making people pay all this money for. Happy Outside. Same here. My boyfriend was never a Scientologist, and so it's hard for him to understand much of this. I have moved on now, but Scientology was a big part of my life for a long time, so sometimes I revise it. You can't find the Debbie Cook letter here. Oh, you can find it. She sent it to thousands of Scientologists before she was declared. You'll have to scroll down a little past the article. If you don't mind my asking, what ended up making you decide to leave? Wish I could make that a little bigger. I just read Debbie Cook's letter, and that was Ijami. I think about all those people and friends I had at Flag. Would that include children? And they all want to do good for mankind, and the org is so out KSW. I was one of the hatting officers. Oh, I've heard some very negative things about the hatting, you guys. in HCO and so really cared about KSW. My senior was very on policy, and that rubbed off on me. There was a lot of squirrely shit going on within the org that really bothered me. For example, the ratio of course supervisors to students in the staff college was about 1 to 75 plus. Insane. Oh my gosh. Observing that was a nightmare for me. Every day I would see people falling asleep while on study, even senior execs. I wrote tons of KRs informing higher execs, including the captain. When I was still getting no response, I wrote to RTC. That's something training center. And they said they would look into it. Nothing changed. Shortly after the staff college caught on fire and burned down, that was ironic. Anyway, Debbie Cook shared exactly what I felt was going on at Flag. I share a very similar viewpoint with her. I always felt the fundraising was out KSW. Wish I knew what that meant. And that if the org would just follow the policies exactly, there would be no need for the crazy fundraising that just creates more bad PR for the church. Just to share, I liked this quote she chose from LRH. Oh, Jesus. If the org slumps, don't engage in fundraising or selling postcards or borrowing money. Just make more income with Scientology. It's a sign of very poor management to seek extraordinary solutions for finance outside Scientology. It has always failed. For orgs, as for PCs, solve it with Scientology. Every time I myself have sought to solve financial or personal in other ways than Scientology, I have lost out. So I can tell you from experience that org solvency lies in more Scientology, not patented combs or fundraising barbecues. HCO PL 24, February 1964, issue 2, org programming. LRH himself discouraged internal org fundraising, yet Scientology gets bashed for it. It's sickening and makes me really sad for people who are in it for the right reasons, wanting to correctly apply Scientology and dedicating their lives to it. Just so if you guys didn't know, that's a sacrifice. They're stealing souls. Didn't you guys know? Did you know there's very many ways to steal people's souls? Now you know. The thought of wanting to leave built up over some time. With all the out tech and fundraising, I lost respect for some Scientologists. I started to realize I couldn't see myself doing this for the rest of my life. The final and main reason I am no longer on staff, though, is because I was a PTS type. A case. My parents are super antagonistic towards Scientology, they being super Christian. Happy Outside responds, it's amazing how much basic policy is violated in orgs, isn't it? Especially in regards to the care of staff, training, time off, auditing, etc. I was never at Flag, but this was my experience at mid-management, Kant management, and individual orgs. It frustrated me to no end how staff welfare was ignored. They don't care. It's when narcissists are running things. The same sort of ratios of staff supervisors existed at FLO level. Don't even get me started on how much worse it was at CLOWUS. For a while, we didn't even have a staff course room. You had to study in one of the service org academies. If you had time between dealing with the constant emergencies and access to a word clearer or cramming officer, forget about it. Reminds me of a lot of my jobs. By the way, it's so crazy that the staff college burned down after all of that. I fear that the blue building's going to be next. I also couldn't understand how much Sea Org members were not trusted. Weren't we supposed to be the most ethical beings on the planet? And yet we couldn't be trusted with cell phones or internet. They got to keep the con going. When I was leaving the PAC base, they were installing security cameras in the berthing hallways. I thought that was a complete admission of failure to establish Department 1. These people get no privacy. There is so much emphasis on ethics and absolutely none on establishment, as it could have been. I championed policies like Y-hatting and couldn't understand how such policies were generally ignored. I couldn't agree with you more about the fundraising and the quote you shared. I wondered why this was being violated wholesale. I would always think, didn't LRH say solve it with Scientology and such? It's like the people running the church don't believe in their own policies. What does that tell you guys? I still get some magazines and sometimes check out the completions in the back. There seems to be absolutely no emphasis anymore on doing the bridge. Only basics, which isn't actually per any policy anywhere. Sure, reading the books is all well and good, but didn't LRH say that the business of orgs is making auditors? You know, like child auditors. I see very few auditing and training completions, and it makes me shake my head. I'm not sure why I care, probably just habit. I had always thought things were much more on policy at INT management and was hoping for that to trickle down to us. When I found out how insane things really were up there, that was the last straw for me, as far as the church was concerned. Did you ever consider studying Scientology independently? I did for a while, worked on reading books and whatnot, but found that it just honestly wasn't for me. I'm happier without Scientology, as it turns out. Ijma responds, I couldn't agree with you more on everything. I couldn't understand why the church wouldn't just train, audit, and truly establish an effective staff college for Sea Org members. And at Flag, of all places, with 2,000 plus staff members, you'd think they'd have it all top-notch like they do for the public. How do they expect staff to deliver and promote Scientology well if none of them are moving up the bridge or studying? It's completely backwards and doesn't make sense. I gained a lot from what I did study. For example, don't listen to this, you guys. For example, study tech. I still use it, and it helps a lot while I'm going to college. I also think I gained a lot of confidence in myself, learn how to communicate better, problem solve, improve relationships, and I think I have an overall better work ethic. I feel like I know what is right and wrong, and I can tell when I'm being irrational. I no longer have a fear about what is the purpose of life and feel like I can control my life better. I don't regret my time in the Sea Org at all or having studied Scientology. I haven't studied Scientology independently. I had the basic books and lectures sent to me by someone who donated as part of the ethics program, which now that I think about it, isn't that sort of insane that donating would be part of making up the damage as part of the danger condition? Anyway, my mom found them and threw them all away. I can't follow that because I'm not a Scientologist, so. You are right about the basic books. There was an order sent down from COB, that's Miss Gavage, which was to have all the staff, all 2,000, gotten through the basic books by a certain date. That never happened and was impossible due to the conditions of staff college. Not enough supervisors, dictionaries, word clearers, and the rest of qual. This also meant that anyone who was on a course, like a child, was taken off policy, including auditing, training, and hatting. So off policy, I can't even. It's unbelievable. It's like the people running the church don't believe in their own policies. Sad and true. I wish I could get Debbie's letter out to the SO members at Flag. They have no idea. Hollaback girl. A lot of people like me who have left look back now and wonder how we stayed so long and ignored things we saw that were wrong. The word you're looking for is indoctrination. TARDIS Chaser says, are members of your family still in the church? And if so, are you allowed contact with them still? Happy outside. I do have some extended family and friends who are in the church. I haven't been expelled, so I can still contact them. If it were known that I was doing something like this, though, I would certainly be instantly cut off from anyone I know there. The sad thing is that everyone I know would unquestionably cut me out of their lives, and believe I was a bad person. And I just want to add in here, that's why a lot of outside people don't like Scientologists. I mean, I care about Scientologists to a degree, but my primary concern is the children. And how are the children being abused? The adults. Happy outside. I haven't. I was mostly in the LA area. Funny thing about that, the location was supposed to be a big secret, and no one ever talked about where it was. Seemed pretty silly to me at the time, but they were dead serious about keeping the location a secret. I don't know what they're talking about. I missed something there. I think there was a deleted post. And then there's another one. Happy Outside says, wasn't talked about. You literally did not talk about any negative things that were going on when you were in the Sea Org. I have read some accounts since I left, but not by anyone I know personally. And whatever was deleted. Happy Outside says, it is the headquarters of the church, management, and also where the organization which creates all media resides. Okay. Kita Kamena. I was a member of one organized group within one major religion. We have never been asked directly to give money, but it was expected from us. But we could ask help with employment from other members at influential positions. Is it the same for Sea Org? Money and easier employment? And how big percentage of your members have university degree and or PhD? And what level did you reach? Thank you for your bravery. I believe it is hard for you. Happy Outside responds, Sea Org members work beyond full-time for the church, and when I left about 10 years ago, we're making $50 a week. If you leave the Sea Org, you are considered a traitor, and from personal experience, I can tell you that a lot of Sea Org members stop liking you. I didn't experience that from the regular staff or public. Yeah, it's like everything in Scientology is conditional. There's no loyalty at all. Public are asked to donate a lot of money, and the increasing pressure and emphasis on fundraising was one of the things that made me start to reconsider the organization as a whole. I didn't know many people who had a college degree. It wasn't considered relevant. Emphasis was on education in Scientology only. I didn't reach any high level, not even clear, for those who understand that. I mostly learned organizational policies and some of the basic tenets relating to ethics, communication, and such. Kita Kamina, thank you for your reply. I met some members of Scientology Church in Bologna, Book Fair, Italy. I didn't say that correctly. Biggest children book fair. Oh, here you guys, here they go. A child's book fair. Where they were selling Scientology books in all major languages for wholesale at bargain prices. Yeah, because nobody wants them. Of course, no country or distributor wanted to buy from them. Good luck in your life and carpe diem. Slutmiko. How seriously did you take the Xeno stuff? Happy Outside. I didn't know about it. That was all higher level material that I never got to. Scientologists believe we are immortal spirits who have been around for billions of years, and so any amount of crazy things could have happened in that time period, according to them. I did believe that the spiritual being thing, but I'm not sure how I feel about it now. I have read some of the Xenu stuff now, and it's pretty crazy, yeah. Third Drell. Trillions of years to be more accurate. This is, of course, far older than the age of the universe. Happy outside. You know, I read about that just recently and was floored. It never occurred to me that Hubbard referenced things occurring trillions of years ago. I never got that far in Scientology, auditing-wise. Have to wonder, did she have child auditors? Third draw. Yeah, the OT level stuff is some pretty whacked out shit. Elron supposedly had quite the love for booze and amphetamines back when he was cooking up Scientology, so that probably explains a lot. And mescaline. Lanolin. How did you not know about that, if you don't mind me asking? It's pretty common knowledge for the whole thing was started by a science fiction author, and the whole story of the Xeno thing. Are you guys not allowed to read the original Bible, manifesto, whatever you call it, that he wrote? Happy outside. Here's how I and many others who had not reached that level, the majority of Scientologists, by the way, did not know. 1, we were constantly told that anything that was on the internet about OT levels was distorted, changed, or wrong. We didn't think the church would be lying to us. 2, it is drilled into you that you cannot look at the upper level materials because it would be harmful to you. It'll make you, didn't they tell you it'll give you pneumonia and you'll die or something like that? As if it would prevent you from getting the most gain when you finally reach that level. Plus, if you did read anything in advance, you would probably be disqualified from being allowed to do the levels. Yes, you had to be approved to do them. It's a long story that somehow made sense at the time. Besides, all of that is just auditing and incidents. There are not precepts or tenets of Scientology. They aren't what Scientologists believe in. I discuss this in further detail elsewhere in the thread. It's just policies. Aforu sounds very similar to what I've read of Freemasons. Freemasons has nothing to do with, Freemasonry. I don't even want to go there. I just don't. Still got to read my Manly P. Hall. Oh yeah, I know nothing about them. Happy Outside says. I see what she's saying though, because in Freemasonry they have levels, so that does make sense. Wonder why. Sounds like must be just a coincidence, huh? P1K0. When you notice a friend is getting drawn into Scientology, what would be an effective way to try to put a hold to that, if at all possible? Happy Outside. Don't outright trash everything about Scientology. People, including myself, have been helped by some of the things in Scientology, and so those who say things like Scientology kills or imply that all of Scientology is evil, bad, etc., aren't necessarily considered creditable. Well, those statements are true. Scientology does kill. It's one of the problems with protesters. You won't get much traction among Scientologists because they won't believe Scientology kills. You have to start more basic. Teach them about thought stopping and try to get them to look at the corruption of the church itself, as opposed to Scientology. That makes sense. That's how I finally got out. I started with being able to look at the accounts of all the people who left the church, but were still loyal to Scientology. Okay. P1K0. Do you know a book or a blog that is well balanced enough to maybe get this message through? Maybe something you read that triggered you? Happy Outside. Well, for me, I was already having doubts. So by the time I found out about the abuse allegations, I was more receptive to it. It depends on how far in he or she is. My favorite, and the one that really got me thinking about Scientology in general, is this one. This site is pretty good for those who are hardcore Scientologists, who might be receptive to the idea that the church is all corrupt, but Scientology is all good. Let me see. It's probably not going to go through, but no. Scientology Cult is a site run by Scientologists who have left the church. Lots of expose stuff here. It's a bit harder for someone who is really into Scientology to visit because of the cult label, but there are a lot of great articles here. Again, I think that acknowledges that Scientology can help people. It is important to getting existing Scientologists to look at the problems within the church, because they are mostly expecting people who are saying negative things about Scientology to be rabidly antagonistic about the whole subject. Thanks, I really appreciate your doing this AMA. Da Mangaka. I cannot upvote you enough. I think this is the main problem with all religions. TBH, it's a process of brainwashing they use upon you to stop thinking and make you overlook things, either in the organization or the things they teach. A thought crime. If people were to show these kinds of aspects, I'm sure there would be less people inside. Happy outside, thanks. It's tremendously hard to recognize when you are in, and there's a lot of pressure to not think about the negative things, which is particularly ironic since a big slogan in Scientology is think for yourself. Wow, talk about ironic. It's one of those things I liked about it when I first joined. It works so long as you don't actually question the church. De Mangaka. Usually religions of many of the New Age movements tend to all be like that. They're all designed the same. All free your mind and happy trees being painted. Only when you are deeper you realize you are not meant to question anything they tell you. It's kind of sad, and it can be applied to many things actually, not just religion, ideologies. Good thing you are awake. Never give away that right to think for yourself. And also, it reminds me of, the last 5 years we weren't allowed to question things. You guys should know what I'm talking about. Well, you guys know I question. I'm still here. Happy outside. Yeah, that seems accurate. Thanks for the kind words. The other Matt. My church, Christian, always says to question everything and to keep asking questions. Asking why and how is key to understanding. Excuse me. Not all Christian churches or religions are like this, but some are. Cartage Forever says, do you feel that the anti-Scientology protests, such as the ones done by Anonymous, reduce Scientology? Happy outside. I think they have decreased the number of people joining Scientology, yes. It has raised awareness among the general population about Scientology being a negative thing, and so less people are inclined to look into it. I saw this firsthand doing things like book selling on the streets. Toward the end for me, it took a tremendous effort to even sell a book to someone, as most people wouldn't even give you the time of day because of Scientology's reputation. In the early 90s, it was much easier because so many people hadn't even heard of it. As for existing Scientologists, sadly the protesters tend to galvanize them. They feel that their religion, which has helped them despite the frustrations they may have with things like fundraising, and pretty much every Scientologist has these frustrations, is under attack. This is why I think it's important for protesters to try not to be antagonistic to staff. I agree with that. And to realize that these people honestly believe they are doing something good, that these people have dedicated their lives to helping others, even if what they are doing right then is wrong. They are, to use Lawrence Wright's phrase, in a prison of belief. The staff and public who interact with protesters are almost always instructed on how to do so by an arm of the church called the Office of Special Affairs, which is where a lot of the really nasty stuff you see externally, such as harassing former Scientologists and those who speak out against Scientology, is generated from. Even if you, and I mean this is a general term, not necessarily you personally, disagree with Scientology philosophy, you should recognize that attacking deeply held beliefs will get you no traction. The best tactic I have seen in pointing out how the current church management has twisted Scientology precepts itself and is violating Hubbard's policies. This is the sort of thing that will actually get more Scientologists to start looking, because they most likely do have disagreements with management that they are harboring and have suppressed within themselves because such thoughts are bad. Happy outside. I thought of something else. I saw a video recently taken by a protester of a staff member interacting with the police, of course, who had been called by the org because of some supposed wrongdoing by the protesters. It was trumped up by the org, and the protesters were very upset with the staff member. Well, they should be. However, I happen to know the staff member in question. He's actually a really nice and extremely hardworking and caring guy. Most likely it wasn't even him who called the police. And if he did, it was because this is what he has been instructed to do by OSA. Well, you got to take some responsibility. I'm sorry. You got to take responsibility. That's the problem here. OSA wants to catch protesters with even the most minor infraction in order to force them to stop protesting or to discredit them by saying they violate laws or attack Scientologists physically. Well, how's that working out for them? Oh my God, it's really me. Says, what is your perspective on L. Ron Hubbard? Do you think he suffered from mental illness as has been speculated? And what do you think his motivations were behind Dianetics and the creation of Scientology? Did you ever see or know anyone that saw his office and rooms that are prepared for him daily in case he returns? I've heard rumors that Shelley Miscavige is doing that. That's what I've heard. How do you think that Scientology continues to recruit members worldwide despite its waning reputation? I don't know how much further I can go, you guys. Happy Outside says, I think he had a bit of a God complex. Certainly, he thought he could solve all the world's problems. I don't necessarily think he made up Scientology just for money, as some have said, speculated. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. What do you say the best way to make money is through religion? But rather more for power and fame, for being heralded as some sort of savior. All of the above. I always found his fixation on communism to be a bit weird. That's funny. That's funny. And he generated a legend for himself within Scientology that is widely believed inside, that is. Every church has an honorary office for Hubbard. I don't think most people regard it as something for when he returns, but rather as an acknowledgement of his as the founder of the religion. He used to keep an office in all of the churches as he traveled around a lot, so it's a homage to that. Do you guys see anything different with Hollywood idols versus religious idols? Idolatry. It's all idol worship. It's a religion of a Moloch. Hello? You could see one. Seriously, most church staff are friendly and would be happy to take you on a tour. You won't get into their clutches just by walking in. Although in recent years I have heard of staff getting more suspicious of people coming in to check out their churches, which is unfortunate. But if you walked in and said, I'm just curious about Scientology, any chance I could get a tour and ask a few questions, that is perfectly acceptable. The other mad, I'd suggest not risking it. These people are well versed in what they do. By the way, what you are doing is fantastic and most likely will liberate people as a result. Thank you. Beneath the waves. Say we have friends or family that are members of the church. Is it worth it to try to get them out, or could the benefit to them be from Scientology outweigh any evils the organization is known for? Another suspect question, you guys. Happy Outside. I've tried to talk to the person closest to me about it. He's still all in and won't listen to or believe anything negative. It's hard to get people who are hardcore members to look at what is really going on. They simply don't believe it. I didn't either. If you told me back then that I'd be doing something like this, I never would have believed it possible. The church engages in a lot of thought-stopping tactics. You are constantly taught that people who are saying bad things about the church are lying and out ethics. P-H-A-D, P-A-Faded, is out ethic a noun? Now, isn't that a weird question, you guys? Suspect questions. Happy Outside says, sorry, this is my mistake. I am allowing some Scientology speak to creep into my comments here. I realize that my description never actually said what the Sea Org was either. Oops. What I meant was essentially unethical. The beach hours. Do you believe that the Church of Scientology is merely misinformed, but harmless, or intentionally misinforming and harmful? Happy Outside. Intentionally misinforming and harmful. I have seen statements made by PR representatives, like Rinder, that I know from personal experience to be untrue. Things like, it's up to individual members whether they choose to disconnect from people, and women aren't coerced into getting abortions. I was actually told by my boss that I should get an abortion when I got pregnant. Did you get one? I did not, and was pretty pissed off when she said that to me. You imagine the sickness. I mean, the sickness, it's already sick. It's misogynistic. It's devilish. It's demonic. It's repugnant. It's a sacrifice to Moloch. But what makes me even more sick is that women are trying to get other women to do this. I did not, and was pretty pissed off when she said that to me. My then husband also had someone ask him why I wasn't just getting an abortion. We were heavily stigmatized for deciding to keep the child, as it meant we'd have to leave the Sea Org. At least half of the people I knew stopped talking to me. Can you imagine this, you guys? How many of these elderly people that people are feeling so bad about were doing these things? You see what I mean? I knew simply stopped talking to me, and I got lots of dirty looks and snide comments. We were sent out into the world with no money, no assets, and no experience. It was overwhelming and intimidating as hell. Oh, so they didn't leave on their own? Hogwarts needs Wi-Fi. Asks, is your husband out as well? He's my ex, and yes. Diaroa, cocktail. Why do they want you to have an abortion? A lot of religious delight in members having kids because it represents the possibility of an easy mind to indoctrinate. Oh, hi there, Catholics. Well, it's only within the Sea organization that this occurs, because they want the staff there to do nothing but work for Scientology. No distractions, and children are a major distraction. However, they will happily take the children of former Sea Org members to work in the Sea Org. I'll never forget how angry I became when I got a letter from someone in the Sea Org about getting my 13-year-old to join the Sea Org. LAPD, Department of Justice, FBI. First they want me to abort my child, and now they want to recruit her into their slave labor camp. It was pretty much the last straw for me. You guys, this is getting too long. I'm going to go ahead and leave the link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. It's about halfway down if you guys want to continue the discussion that was there. Peace.